Not even close. Not even
Not even
close.
close.
All right. Three, two, one. Oh, what's the point anymore? What's the point
Kind
anymore?
of on brand for the Sixers.
Welcome on in. It's another edition of Clap Your Hands. Jack Fritz, Eliot Shorr-Parks, as we are here live after a game that was pretty competitive, and I was like, oh man, maybe they will be okay without Joel. To
Not so
one
much.
quarter, 1 quarter and a half later, I now wonder if this team is going to make the playoffs. What's up, Elliot?
Yeah, I feel like I need, I don't know, maybe 18 Coors Lights right now. I feel like
It's been
one
a
or
tough
two,
stretch.
yeah, one or two won't get it done. So, and we'll just jump right into it. Watching this team reminded me of last year when Jalen Hurts went out for those two games against Dallas and the Jets, or not the Jets, Dallas and the Saints. And they lost both games. Were competitive somewhat in Dallas, but against the Saints, it was okay. They clearly missed Jalen. And although he didn't play, he helped his MVP case. I know Joel is not going to win MVP because of this dumb 65 game rule, and he wouldn't have won it anyway because he's going to miss probably the rest of the season. But this game tonight showed, and really the last game as well against the Nets, Joel is the most valuable player in the league. Like it felt like I was watching the 0-1 Sixers without Iverson or the 2022 Eagles without Jalen Hurts. This team has no shot of doing anything without Joel Embiid. There is like, and we'll get into the trade deadline. Maybe Daryl makes a trade and he lands, I don't know, like LeBron, or he gets Murray, he gets Bogdan, he gets Andre Drummond. Like maybe he does enough on Thursday where there's hope. But it's currently constructed. If they don't make a massive trade on Thursday, this team is dunzo. They got no shot. Tyrese Maxey is not good enough to be the guy. They got no juice. It felt like no one really looked like they had any life until Turk came in. Like that was it. Like Toby wasn't good enough. Maxey looked disinterested. Like I think he had 4 attempted threes halfway through the third quarter. Like that's not going to be good enough. They looked awful. I know it's one game, but you combine the blowout against the Nets, and there's been 3 games without Joel, and they have looked terrible in 2 of them. And it's very, very concerning moving forward because Joel is not coming back anytime soon.
No, and obviously we'll get more into Joel. But
Yeah.
as tonight goes, it felt so processy, except with like some better veterans, but still like
It's all the veterans people wanted him to sign at the time.
yeah,
Like
it's
those types of players.
the Ish Smith and
Yep.
like those kind of guys that I've been hey, know how to play the game. Teach the
Yeah,
young
yes,
teach the young
exactly
guys how
right.
to
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
That's what tonight felt like. And the most disappointing part for me is Maxi,
Yeah.
because like this is, and I thought against Utah, I think we were together, and I think I said this to you,
It was a
like
clap your hands night.
I think I said to you, like, look, he's taking the Joel thing personally. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
see smiling. I didn't see. I saw a bit of a dog mentality.
Mm.
And then these last 2 games, and especially tonight, just it's like he wasn't getting the calls going to the rim, and he just said, "Well, not my night." It's like, well, that's not how it goes, and it's hard, and it's not Maxi's fault from the standpoint of it's just hard for a 6 foot guard to like
Yeah.
have that much of an impact. Like, look at like Kyrie is still ridiculous. Like Kyrie can beat you at 3 point, mid range, create
Yeah.
space for himself at the rim, and Maxi, it still feels like has to get a pick to get to the rim. Doesn't really have a mid range game, and when the 3 point's not falling, it's just not there. So the most, I guess, exciting part, if there is an exciting part, which is probably the wrong thing to say,
Yeah. I don't think
but
people
most
are feeling excited right now.
the most exciting part about Joel going down was supposed to be, okay, let's see what Maxi is. Let's see who Maxi is. And so far, if the 51's great, but it's that feels more like outlier than what we're gonna get on a night in night out basis. And tonight was just so disappointing from the standpoint of that's a close game in the third quarter. That's a close game early in the fourth quarter, and he just didn't do anything. Like him and Tobias were invisible, and that's a
Yeah.
37 million. And we don't have to relitigate every Tobias game. He shot 1 3 tonight. Like how in the hell are you in a 30? Again, he's just the worst. He's got to be the most unreliable, nearly $40 million player in the history of sports.
Well, look, I know how it works. That you always bring up his salary when it comes to him, but the 1 3-pointer is not enough. This is a team that doesn't get up enough 3-pointers. And to get to the Tyrese Maxey thing, like there is probably not a player in Philly sports where my opinion sways more back and forth. There are some pods when we record this, and I'm like, he's the guy. He can be the best offensive player. All those things.
Yeah. I mean, you were being ridiculous.
I know. I called you out on the radio with the Jalen Brunson thing. I did.
And the text yesterday about I felt like you were leaning in a little hard yesterday to try to make your point, which is an Eliot special. Yes. But I think you kind of echo the sentiments of a lot of people with Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, like I think it goes back and forth because there are games where if he's making his three, he looks like he can be that player. But here's the bottom line: the dude is just not a number one option on a great team, which is fine. Like he's clearly an NBA player. Like obviously he's an all-star player. He can be a top 4 player on a championship team. He's not a top 2 player on a championship team. He's just not. Like if Joel gets taken out of a game and he's obviously not played the last 3, he doesn't have it in him to carry the team. He just doesn't. I think he can be the 3rd best player on a legit championship team, or like a 2A if you have another guy like a Murray or something like that. Or like a Levine, your boy, if if Levine's playing at his best. But I think what is just so concerning is when with Embiid not there, you are seeing that teams can just take Maxey out of it. Like Maxey's finding out what it's like to be the main guy. Where the Mavs game plan with Maxey as the main guy. Where the Nets game plan with Maxey as the main guy. And to your point about how it looks like he was just kind of saying, well, my shot's not going, it is what it is. I agree with that. I know he got in foul trouble early, the 3rd foul, little ticky-tacky, but he gets taken out of the game almost immediately. He's thrown off almost immediately in the beginning of the game. And I know the team kept it close, but if you look late in the game, like I thought Luka and Kyrie didn't have a great first half to this game. They were in there, like they did some things, but they weren't dominating by any stretch. But when it mattered, like Kyrie took over. Luka made some big shots. By the way, Luka, the like headband thing, it's not needed. Your hair is not long enough, bro. Like you don't need to wear it, in my opinion. It's clearly like, as someone that watches a lot of soccer, like that's what he's going for. It just doesn't work. So I think Luka needs to take the headband off. Just my personal opinion on that. But thank you. Just wanted to share that because I know a lot of people were probably thinking about that.
Yeah, they couldn't wait.
But yeah, like if Tyrese has to be the guy, they're done. They're done. I mean, there's a reason they're 4-11 now without Embiid, if even that, I think. Like if Tyrese, if they don't make a trade on Thursday, they will be in the play-in tournament. And at that point, you really have to debate if bringing Embiid back is even worth it for that. So I think that losing streaks happen in the NBA. Bad games happen back-to-back in the NBA. That's not the alarming part. It's that it's happening without Embiid, and that's happening right before the trade deadline. Like if this team wanted to convince Daryl to reinvest in the roster, they did nothing close to that in these past 2 games. Like if I'm Daryl, it's tough to decide what to do because the team you're looking at right now does not look worth investing in unless you're going to trade a bunch of pieces to bring in a bunch of different guys.
Yeah, I think my main feeling about the trade deadline is it's almost like I am going into it only thinking about next year. So like if you can get pieces, can Morey go into the trade deadline thinking about how he wants to craft next year's roster? Mm-hmm. Like can he go in saying, okay, this guy's under contract for a couple years, like this expiring, like if you trade them all your depth pieces or a majority of your depth pieces, can they get someone that can help not only this year but also next year as well, and start thinking in that way, like to really think that this is like a team that can go on a run the second they get Joel back. Well, first off, we don't know when Joel's getting back, and when he does come back, it's likely he's gonna have to play his way into shape. He's got a knee surgery that he's coming back from. Like to expect him to be in playing shape immediately is such it's a reach. Now Joel's an unbelievable athlete, so maybe he could, but we've also seen what happens when he gets out of conditioning for a little bit. So and at that point, they're what, the 7 seed, 8
Yeah,
seed.
look, I mean, look, it's over. Like, it's over. I don't know what to say. Post-game pods are emotional pods. And I just want to pop off really quick on this, what people in the chat are saying, talking about Tyrese Maxey. Like, he's only 23. My guy Jake is in the chat. Not a number one on the title team yet. Good experience for him. What kind of Sixers fan says this? Guys, we have to stop treating Tyrese Maxey with kid gloves. Like, I get he's 23, but this is what, his 4th year in the league, if I'm not mistaken. And I know he didn't play a ton. He's an all-star. Like, saying he's 23, I get that he deserves like a little bit more time to grow, obviously, but he's an all-star that is supposed to be getting a max contract this offseason. This idea of it's always just fun with Max. Like, no one ever wants to criticize Maxey. He had bad playoff performances last year. He was non-existent in the playoffs year they lost to the Hawks. I know he was a rookie at that point, but he was not an impact player. He was a first-round pick. He hasn't had great playoffs, if we're being completely honest. And when the team has needed him, he came up super small. Like, it is what it is. Like, I hate this whole thing where it's like, oh, he smiles, he's a great kid. Like, yes, that's all true. He seems like an awesome guy. You know who else is an awesome guy? Players we rip all the time. Joel, awesome guy. I don't see anybody hesitant to rip him. It really sounds like Jalen Hurts when people are like, well, he's only 25. He's the franchise quarterback. We can't just do that he's 25 anymore. Tyrese Maxey might be young. It does not matter. He's supposed to step up and be the guy right now. This is someone that people are saying not to trade for Dame. Well, look, this is what happened. You didn't trade him for Dame, and now I'm just saying what people said.
Well, I believe you also said that.
Yeah, I also said that, of course. But I'm saying, like, if we're not going to trade him for Dame, then he's got to step up. Like, I don't care how young he is. I don't care that he needs time to develop. They need him now. Like, he's going to be a max player this offseason. He's already an all-star. No more of this not criticizing Tyrese Maxey. They need him to be better than he is. He's supposed to be the number 2 guy on a championship team. He's not playing like it. Like, it is what it is. Like, we can't just, pull the he's young card for him all the time. He needs to be criticized for this. He was not good enough.
It's good to see accountability. Shorr-Parks is
what we bring.
The chat tonight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you disagree? Like, it's absurd. Like, no one ever rips this guy. He was awful tonight. He was awful against the Nets. They need him to step up with Embiid. Like, would Jaylen Brown get treated this way?
Like, what are you expecting?
I was expecting something better than what he's given. I was. He's an all-star. He's an elite 3-point shooter. I thought he'd improve going to the rim this year. It felt like he was more of that guy. You said it. You said it looks like he's embracing this. And I agree with you. It looked like it against the Jazz, but the last 2 games, it certainly hasn't.
No, and tonight was very disappointing. Tonight was a close game in the third. You're going against Kyrie, who, like, similar size, and I'm sure that Tyrese watched Kyrie growing up. I don't know how he couldn't, being that size. And I kind of just thought he folded. So, the thing about Maxey is, and the thing about, because people will bring up age and he's 20, how much better is he really going to get? Like, I mean, how much, like, I feel like we're getting pretty close to the Tyrese Maxey ceiling.
It's interesting.
It's the same thing with Jalen, like, how much better can Jalen really get? Or like, you kind of eventually are what you are. I mean, 23 is not young really in NBA standards. Like,
I agree.
The guys that are difference makers at 23. And it's just, Tyrese is good. It's just, I think, to put the expectation, like, he can be that guy. He's an all-star because of Joel Embiid. Like, he's all that because of Joel Embiid's the guy. He can be a 2B. He can be a high-end 3 if you get the right number 2. But I just think that it's almost putting too much unfair expectations on a kid just because we want to.
All right.
Just because, John, he's going to get the contract or whatever. Like,
yeah, whether it's fair or not, like, it's the reality. He has to be this team's second best player, and really he has to be their top player right now. John in the chat is saying he can't score 51 every night. Top 5 players don't even do that. Like, I'm not saying score 51. I'm saying score more than 15. I'm saying take more than 4 3-pointers. Basically, I don't know what he finished with, but midway through the third, he had about 4 3-pointers. It's not good enough. Like, it doesn't have to be 51. It doesn't have to be 40. It doesn't have to be 35. It has to be more than 15. Like, the thing we criticized Ben about when Joel was out, when he was still here, was that he couldn't carry the offense. And it's just 2 games, but their record without Joel is abysmal. Like, what other team would we say has a legitimate duo? I mean, there's times we've talked about them as the best duo in the NBA, or at least I know I have, which certainly is reactionary, but whatever. Like there are times we've talked about them as the best duo in the NBA. What other duo, when you take one away, is the other one basically not expected to carry the team? Can you think of a single other one? It's not the case in Boston. It's not the case in Dallas. It's not the case in Denver. I mean, Phoenix, definitely not. Those guys get criticized. Tyrese is the only one where it's like, well, he can't score 51. No one expects him to score 51. You have to score more than 15. And moving forward, if we want to do that right now, like Morey has to ask himself, is this team worth investing in? Is it? Because I was in the camp of get Maxey help. You can't tank the season. And maybe that's still the case, but they need a lot of help. Like they don't need just one guy. They need either the guy that's going to be better than Maxey, or they need like 2 or 3 pieces around Maxey. Because as constructed these last 2 games, they are not going to go far.
Well, the 2 or 3 guys seems insane at this point. Like
role players, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's role players, but you already have a team of role players, pretty much. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, are you gonna trade away your role players for other role players? Like, sure, if you if you can go get a shooter, that's fine. But like, if LeBron's available, are you still going and getting LeBron?
Right. Well, Mitch, you're a guy.
I know. Yeah. Well, that was I guess the Embiid thing was really deflating from the standpoint of, okay, so let's say worst case is he misses a month and a half. Then it's like, do I really expect? And by the way, like the Sixers might be a 7, 8, 9 seed.
They legit
by that point.
I mean, the good news is the teams behind them aren't that great, but you're right. Like their own record is not going to be very good.
So and by the way, at what point? And I fought against this and I fought against it, but I don't know how much. I don't know if I feel like fighting against it anymore. At what point do you just cut your losses and shut them down for the year, and say,
Embiid?
Yeah, like let's say you're 2 weeks out or whatever, and he's still fighting to get back, and you're a 7, 8 seed. Like you're gonna rush your franchise player to get back on the court just to probably lose to the Celtics or Bucks. Like right. I don't know if that's smart strategy either. Like at that point, I'd probably just sit him for the year and take the Kendrick Perkins route of make sure he's good to go next year, which I hate. Like I hate the idea of going to next year because it's like, what's really going to change? Because he's probably going to get banged up at some point next year. Like I hate having to keep pushing and kicking the can down the road, but at some point you got to be smart about your players. And is it smart to really rush them back out there? If it's you're facing the Bucks or the Celtics in round 1, like it's just cut your losses.
No, I mean, and I think on one hand, the Embiid conversation is an interesting one because we talk about it almost in like a non-medical sense, like, and I do it as well. Excuse me. Like, all right, well, they would have no shot against the Bucks, so why bring him back? I think the reality is if he's 100%, like if he is ready to play, you bring him back no matter what the situation is.
But he's not going to be 100%. Like,
well, that's what I'm. So if he's not, then I would not. Like if they were the 4 seed and like let's say they trade for Murray and they're playing well and like they have like okay, then bring him back if he's 75%. I get that. But if they're playing as a 9, 10 seed in the play-in tournament, or if they are going to be the 8 seed against the Celtics, then no, you don't bring him back if he's not 100%, because then you could undo all the good you've done by sitting him for all this time. The real question is like, do you think he's going to be back?
I think he's going to try to push and try to get on the court, just because I feel like he will want to shed the injury prone label. And I think even if it's 85%, 90%, he's going to go out there and give it what he's got, because I think that's kind of how Joel is. Like, I don't think he loves the and I wouldn't either. It would drive me nuts. But like, the truth is the truth. But like, the narrative of him being hurt all the time, I think that would drive me nuts. And I think he will do whatever it takes. Like, I still think that's why he played in Golden State. I think it was the 65 game thing. And I do believe the stories about him, and being annoyed that people were kind of calling him out for ducking Jokic. So I think he's very concerned about that stuff. So I think late in the year, I would expect him to be out there, even if it's not 100%. And unfortunately, we kind of know how that's gone the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to tie it to the playoffs, because I agree with you. I think that he will not want to have suffered a season-ending injury. Like, he is someone that certainly like is aware of the narrative around him. Obviously, to your point, I think he definitely cares about it. I think he definitely thinks about it. So I think he'll want to come back, and show that like all this rehab and all that worked. And I'm sure he will work really hard to get back. But you're right that if they're in a situation, like someone needs to be the adult in the room and say to him, nah, man, like you got to sit this out until the end, until next season. Because with how this is looking, this is being dramatic. It's a post-game pod. I'm allowed to be dramatic. Like, I think that the team tonight, like, had end of season Eagles vibes, like almost a feeling of, man, we just don't have it. Like, our guy's not here. Like, this is it. Now, the Eagles had their guy, but everyone except for me was aware that this Eagles season was sinking. And I felt like I fought on it. With the Sixers, I'm looking at it tonight, and it feels like there's no fight there without Joel. Like, they know they're not good enough.
Well, and the thing is that it's just they have so many, like, not guys in these games, and they get really exposed. Like, there was a point, I believe, in the second quarter or maybe in the third quarter where a big 2 out of 3 possessions ended in a Daniel House heave before the shot clock. It's like, who's that for? That's not for anyone. No one needs to see that. That's not going to work. Like, Paul Reed, I told you the 30 points against the Nuggets was the worst thing that could have happened to worse than the Embiid injury.
Your new co-host
is Paul Reed scoring 30 points, because it's just he's got no offensive game. Like, it's got to be one of the biggest aberrations in the history of basketball is Paul Reed scoring 30 points in an NBA game against the Nuggets. It's
especially on like mid-range jumpers.
Yeah, like just was like looked like
took
Elton
one
Brand.
Today. I took a few of them today.
When Elton Brand, used to just be money from the mid-range. That's what Paul Reed looked like for one night. And
I actually took a yoga class with Elton Brand before.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Was he lucid limber? Like Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba can't play. Like,
no, he's terrible.
There's so many, like, these guys just get exposed when Embiid's not there, and especially the Paul Reeds and Mo Bambas of the world who are forced into playing more. Like, that's not that's like if JT went down and it's Garrett Stubbs every day. Like, that's,
I was saying that same thing to Kristen as I was watching the game.
It's a perfect comp. It's a perfect comp. I will say, I just continue to watch Jaden Springer, and I'm fighting the urge to sell high at the deadline. Like, you want to talk about the
I would sell high on the deadline. I would sell high.
The maxi fluctuation.
Yeah.
Of like in or out. Like, sometimes I watch Jaden Springer, I'm like, can't play. And then, like tonight, he's locking down Luka for an entire quarter. He's shooting all the time.
I just feel like he's like a poor man's Marcus Smart.
But like 2 years from now, like,
true.
Is he a legit piece? Or will one of these young teams be interested in taking him on as like a project, and maybe they think he can? But there's something there. There's something there with Jaden Springer. I don't know. Like, it's again probably 2 years away, but there's something there with Jaden Springer.
Yeah, I mean, look, he it's funny to say this after Maxey. He's in a different situation. Like, he is young for what it's worth. I mean, so we'll see. I don't think, to your point, I was obviously watching the game tonight, and I was looking at Twitter, and everyone's like, the Jaden Springer game, like, da-da-da. Then I look at the box score. I'm like, he had 6 points. So I don't know how high you're selling on him, but you are right that he has, I think, looked better. He certainly looked good tonight, and to have it happen right before the trade deadline.
Oh, yeah. I thought him getting second quarter minutes was a showcase. A bit of a
showcase. It was a showcase. Well, by the way, also, there was a report that the Mavs are looking for a tall stretch 4, and I was thinking Toby. Like, this is your chance, like the tryout. And I don't know what he finished with, but it wasn't good enough.
I mean, would there be? I mean, talk about just a beautiful, like a combination of just beautiful things that could happen to one basketball team. I mean, the Pistons being interested in Toby and also working on possibly completing a LaVine trade. I mean, Toby and LaVine in Detroit. Like, it sounds like
the
basketball.
The two players you hate the most. Two of the worst contracts in the NBA.
Like, just move the Pistons. There's just like I know they just made Little Caesars Arena, right? You ever
had Little Caesars?
No. No, I
It's
don't
good.
think so. It looks good on the commercials. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
it is. It's interesting. They do it where you walk in and you just like pick, like you don't pre-order. I think you can, but they just make a bunch of them. You just walk in and pick it up. Just a little fun fact about.
Yeah, well, listen.
Yeah.
I think if I was the Pistons, I would just try to maybe go back to the Palace at Auburn Hills or something. Like, just restart. Rather than
The
wasting your
process.
money, like wasting your money on Levine and Toby, just don't. Like
What I
I know
don't
you
get
get
is, and we're
money
turning
to
into a
burn.
Pistons pod, but like, why wouldn't you just make the trade anyway this year? Like, they're not competing. I get that he's having surgery, but it seems like it's a pretty standard surgery on his foot. If you're the Pistons, why not just do it anyway right now?
Yeah, I don't know. They might. Maybe.
All right. 215.
Well, here's what I don't get.
Whatever the Detroit area code is.
Here's what I don't get.
Yeah.
How does someone with a broken foot or whatever he has, how does he pass the physical? The passing the physical stuff.
I think you'd have to accept he wouldn't.
It's the most nonsense thing of all time. Teams can make guys pass physicals or not.
Yes.
I
agree.
It's as simple as that. But back to the Sixers and no more
This fun team.
No more Pistons talk. I promise. We'll see at the deadline how they approach the deadline will tell us almost everything we need to know about how they feel about Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they feel Joel's closer to, because I don't know if we'll get an update on like the timetable before the trade.
Well, you want to talk about, you want to do Embiid now, or you want to do trade deadline?
Embiid's fine.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
Did Embiid?
Well, no, I'm like, we haven't done a pod since all this came out. Like, I think it was you that said this, and I apologize if it's not. It was either you or Gilio. Like, I do think him going for the surgery was like not only a smart move, but it felt like a mature Embiid move, like to not go down the rehab path. Now, maybe he just needs surgery. He didn't really have a choice.
And
like,
that's kind of what I think happened, is that he had no choice.
All right. Well, then I
it was my take. It was my take, but
it was okay. Yeah. Well, I thought it was a good one. Like, it felt like 3 years ago he would have been rehabbing this, and we would have been sitting here, and he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks, and we'd see him on the court, but he isn't like all those things. And it felt like going for the surgery was the mature, like trying to both win now and later move. Like I was, I don't want to say I was happy to hear he was having the surgery, because obviously the best news would be if he was just playing and he was fine. But for him going for the surgery, like, we'll see how long he's out. Guess we'll get the information in the next day or two. But I was happy he went for the surgery, both for this season and the future.
Yeah, I just, and I never heard of a flap on your
I know.
your meniscus or whatever.
Dude, the Twitter doctors, I both love it and I hate them. Like, on one hand, I hate them because I scroll and I get like 18 different opinions.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I love it because I do feel more informed. Like, and they are doctors, so I guess they know what they're talking about. But I learned more about the knee than I need to.
Can we Well, yeah, we've learned enough about injuries with the Sixers.
Yes.
By the way, quick tangent.
Go for it.
When people say the sentence, your best ability is availability, do they think that it's just, whoa?
Well, who used to say that? Chip.
Whoa.
I think Chip used to say that.
I'm sure he did.
Chip and Joe
people
Banner.
beat up little people. That was one of his. Can't make the club in the tub.
That's another good one. Another football guy one.
Oh,
is there a baseball version of that, or is that a baseball? Can that be baseball too?
The best ability is availability. Feels like a universal sports one.
Yeah.
It's great for that. It's just, because obviously you and I and a good amount of people listen to callers a lot, and it's just like 3 times a show about Embiid. It's like, well, hey, what to say? The best ability is availability. Really? No way.
Well, how was your day talking to Embiid today?
I was fine. It was funny. Like, the Twitter reaction was obviously not positive. I will say though,
Say what the question was for those that might not know.
Would you explore trading Joel Embiid this offseason?
Yeah.
And it sucks, but I am there. It's a 10% increase from the AJ Brown trade. So nice. The AJ Brown trade was 15% said yes, which is low. Yeah. And then the Embiid one today was 26%. So we're moving. We're getting closer on these fake trades.
Well, we did have someone in the chat say, "Jack, would you trade Embiid for Patrick Surtain?" So that was a good one. That was well done.
No, but the Embiid thing. Wait. Hold on. I forget what I was going to say. Oh, well.
You're talking
All
about the
right.
reaction from the callers and trading.
Oh, the reaction from the callers. Yeah, it was funny because on the phones, it was probably like 50-50, you know?
Mhm.
And then on Twitter, it was not 50-50. Not even
Yeah.
close.
So I did listen. It was a good show as always. You've been crushing it. My thing on the Embiid trading thing is, and obviously with the surgery going on, like I kind of agree with you in the way that it just feels like Embiid's I think you put it perfectly. Like, is Embiid someone you'd bet on going into the playoffs? I think he's a great player. I think he's the best player in the league when healthy. I think he has proven quite a bit in his time. But man, like it just feels like this is where it's always going to go. And that's very frustrating because over the last year, I've definitely changed my opinion on Embiid. Like I used to be a pure guard, bucket boy, he's a center, blah, blah, blah. But Embiid became the best scorer in the league. And it's just tough to watch like this happen again. And I hear some Sixers fans like, well, this is what always going to happen. Like this is what the team always is. Like it's a fluke thing. Like he's hurt. Like it is what it is. And trading him is tough because I don't know what you would trade for him. I did think of one hypothetical, but I don't know if it would make sense. Like, would you do Embiid for Ant and Cat?
Well, I would do anything to have Anthony Edwards on my basketball team. So
Yeah.
Probably. Again, the problem with trading Embiid and why I kind of threw it out as explore,
Right?
Because I'm not saying like you gotta get rid. It's over. Like
You'll
get him
never
out
win
of
with him.
town.
Yeah, I like the Howard impression coming out.
Well, it's like because that's not how I feel. Like it's a couple things. Like I love Joel. I think Joel's a great player. It's just it's every year. So at some point, I just you can't take it anymore. And it's like, do I really think that in his 30s, it's all of a sudden like there it is. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna play all the time. So it's why it was like explore is more seeing what you can get, and like if the right trade's out there, be prepared to say yes and see if you can get it done. Like, but again, the problem is like, what's the right trade? Like I could say Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 3 first-round picks from the Nets. Is that enough?
And well, why would the Nets do that?
Well, because Mikal Bridges is a good player, but you get a legit superstar.
Well, but I think that's the tough thing is whoever's trading for Embiid has to feel they can win the title that year. Like I actually think
it's why the Knicks trade never works because it's like, yeah, you want Embiid to play with Anunoby and Brunson.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, like so let's talk about the Suns. Like let's say the Suns are willing to trade Devin Booker. Sixers get a young player. The Suns pair Joel with KD and Bradley Beal next season, obviously not now. Like, I think there's some logic to that. I think what it really comes down to just from a Sixers perspective is, do you want to try to sell high on Embiid when this has now happened again? Or are you going to roll with him for another year? And if you roll with him for another year, then another question is, do you trade Maxey? Like, or do you roll with Maxey again? Like, that's a tough thing about Embiid missing half this year and potentially the rest of the years. Are they just going to run it back? Like, I know they're going to have cap space. So you try to bring in another big time star. But if you go in again with the plan being Embiid is the main person on the offense, I don't know. It feels like setting up for failure in a way. And this is coming from a guy that's believed in the Sixers probably more than anybody else in the city. I've defended them more than anyone on WIP, but like it does feel a little, like you said, like Groundhog's Day. Like here we are again. And I don't know what the solution is other than trade him.
I would like for it to be pointed out that the Sixers losing Game 6 and 7 did not break Eliot Shorr-Parks.
It did not. No.
Losing a February 5th game to the Mavericks is
that was it. That was the end for me. Yeah.
That's when you knew it was over for the Sixers. Is this day, February 5th. But yeah, it's just it's an annoying spot to be in. It's because he's an all-time great. He's a Hall of Famer. And it comes down to, do you want to just ride it out and take your chances, or and that's fine if you want to do that. Like you just have to stomach never getting anything for him. Now I think his contract's only till he's 32, so it's not like the end of the world.
Yeah,
like,
it's not much longer.
So if things aren't going well at that point, then he can probably pretty easily move on. But it's not a fun conversation to have. Because obviously, wherever he goes, there's probably going to be someone else there, and he's probably going to want to go there. And they might have a better chance at kind of at winning a title. It's just,
Man,
I know, and it's a
I just feel like
gamble
I had
that,
so much hope like 2 weeks ago.
of course, he
It
scored
just feels
70.
like it all
He scored
cratered.
70 2 Mondays ago.
I
Like,
know. It feels like it all cratered.
and
Think about this. In the last 2 weeks, we've had a player score 70 and 51. And now we're talking about trading them both. Like, obviously, that's reactionary, but still, just to think of where this has come and how quickly things have changed.
yeah, and the reality is he's probably never going to ask out. So the only way he's really going to get moved is if he asks out. But it's time to start having that conversation. Like he for the 5th straight postseason, it's like he's banged up again. It's like, how I can't believe we're here. I can believe it. I can, but it's just like, why? Why is it?
I agree.
And I've talked about it. I fought back against it with the whole process karma thing. But
I don't believe in that. I know you do, but
it's hard not to.
What do you think the basketball gods are punishing?
Yes.
I'm like, if you want to tell me, the one thing I will say, maybe the process people got right, maybe, is that I think Embiid starting like 3 or 4 years of his NBA career, really 3. He was on the bench for 2 of them, so he didn't play. But 3, maybe 4 years of not being expected to seriously compete, like maybe that did kind of teach him or like take a little bit of the fire out from him. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, he's played through a lot. They've won a lot of games, like all those things. So I don't believe with like the karma of it, but I do think there's always going to be a ton of baggage when Joel is here. So to your point, like maybe it's not the basketball gods, but when they trade Joel, that's when it'll feel like the process is over. Until then, it will feel like they're carrying the baggage of that.
Well, of course, yeah. As soon as if they ever move them, it's over. I mean,
Right.
the process is, and everyone can relitigate it and talk about it all they want. Like it's fine. It's over.
It'll be fun. I'm sure. Well, you'll have the guy to do it. So yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be a great time.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be here again and just having this feeling like, is it ever? Like, I think that's the main question every one of us has really asked themselves ever since the Embiid, he went down, and whether you watched it live or woke up the next morning, like the main prevailing thought is this ever going to work here? Like, is it ever going to work here? And to be here again for, I don't know, again, like the 3rd straight year, really, like the 2021 Hawks series to now, it's like, I don't know. And at what point do you just cut your losses and say, let's just start over? Like, there's something interesting about starting over. Like, there's something
exciting.
Of course, it's like getting out. It's getting out of a breakup and getting back out there and seeing what you got. Like, draft picks in college basketball, and oh man, like looking at the future stars that they can go get. I mean,
well, what's funny is when we started
exciting.
the pod, it was, we're here to save the Sixers. Maybe we just didn't know the way we were saving them. It wasn't the winning. It was, it's time to blow this thing up. Man, I love a good reactionary postgame.
Well, and I think people go a little too far where it's like, oh, the second you trade Embiid, like you're in the doldrums of the sport. Like,
no,
I don't think that's true. I mean,
well, if Maxi's legit, then you're not.
Yeah.
How many other teams with another All-Star we say are in the doldrums?
No, I know, and it's. Like I was always of the mindset of you have to be at the top of the draft to get a difference maker. Well, look at some of the best players in basketball. Like Jokic was a 2nd rounder.
Pains me to have you say him first.
I know. Giannis was what, 15, 14 in that draft. Like there have been great players in the last couple of years that have not been drafted. In the top 5. So you can find talent all over. You just have to be able to be able to find it. And like they had a run there. Where this is maybe just to appease to our producer James Jackson, where if they just drafted Nova kids, they're probably the best team in basketball.
Yeah, no, right in their own backyard.
Like if you just drafted those guys after you got Embiid, like they're probably the best team. I mean, Brunson, DiVincenzo, Cam Whitmore, Mikal Bridges, Sadiq Bey, like like Josh Hart, like all these guys. If you just did that, but they've been like one of the most under talked about things. Everyone rips Howie, right? Like for he's not a good drafter, yada yada yada. Like the Sixers aren't good drafters either. No, they haven't had.
Yeah, I mean Maxi's a good one, but
Maxi's a good one. I get it, but there's there's just nothing else. I mean, there's nothing else. If they could have, if the Sixers could have taken the Georgia model and only drafted Nova kids, like
Yeah.
the Eagles only draft Georgia kids.
Yes. Well, the Georgia kids feel like they might not be any good, unfortunately.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. But for some reason, the Nova kids could have had that, and it's just
yes.
sickening that we don't, because
Not
they were
Temple
right
or
there.
No.
No. I'm the only Husky.
Biggest Husky in Philly sports right here.
Yeah, biggest and only.
Oh man, I had an Embiid point. Oh, this is what I was gonna say. So to your point about if they trade Embiid, things could turn, like it's not gonna take forever to turn around. This is gonna be ironic coming from me. You'll appreciate this. But like, let's not act like they've been in the finals every year. like they have been a successful team. They've been more. I think I've made the point that they've been very successful. One of the most successful teams in the league over the last 6 years, 7 years, whatever. But they are just getting bounced in the second round every year. So while people say, well, if you trade Embiid, you have to rebuild. Your best chance to win a title with is Embiid. They've had a lot of chances to win with Embiid, and they have not done it. They have been 1 seeds. They have been up in 7-game series in the second round. They've had game 7 at home. Like they've had him in the year he won MVP. They've had him healthy. They've had him not healthy. Like it hasn't happened with Embiid. So while I agree, obviously, if you trade Embiid, it's a step back, and you have to figure out what you're doing, and you have to obviously hit on draft picks and all those things. It's not like they're in the finals every year. They have a chance, they do, and they're good enough to have that chance. But they are not a team that has consistently been obviously out of the second round that you can like break up this winning core that has won so much, and they have to an extent. But they have to get they are a team that is not above breaking up.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Who are we breaking up? Toby's on the last year of a deal, and then Maxi's going to be here.
Man, this pod turned negative very quickly.
Well, it's just so funny. I'm trying to think. I think Paul Reed. I'm trying to think. The 3 players that are under contract next year. One of them is
Jaden Springer, Embiid,
and Paul Reed.
And Paul Reed. Yeah.
That's
So I did put together a list of guys I think they should target at the trade deadline. I don't know if you feel like hearing it.
Do you still want it? Do you still want them? Or no?
I mean, I'll view the list a little differently now. So here's my current opinion on the trade deadline. If you can go out and get a Lauri Markkanen, is it DeJounte Murray? I know I see too many people. DeJounte Murray. DeMar DeRozan's an interesting one, free agent, but like those type of guys, I think have a chance to come in and legitimately make a difference. Lauri Markkanen can be, I think, close to the number 1 guy on offense, if not at least good enough to help Tyrese Maxey. Obviously, we know what Murray is. He's an all-star caliber player. I feel like he's killing it tonight. I've seen some tweets about him having a big game. Like I would trade big-time assets to get Murray because these are guys that also beyond this year can be part of the team, and they complement Embiid. DeMar DeRozan.
What are you trading big-time assets for DeJounte Murray for?
Because well, why wouldn't you? What's your issue? Like, is there any player you like? You don't like Levine. You don't like Murray. Like, who other than Ant? And they're not going to get Ant. Like, who would you trade for? Because Murray is young. He can handle the ball. He's having a good year shooting it. He's carried somewhat the responsibility of being a number 1 guy. He can explode for big time games. Like, I think Murray would be. I mean, he got traded, I think, for 3 first-round picks from the Spurs. Like, he is a player that has been proven has high value in the league. This guy James is saying Murray's a fraud. Murray's not a fraud. Like he has bad teammates in Atlanta. I know Trae Young's a little similar to Maxey, but ideally you'll have him beat at one point. So Murray is someone I would trade big time assets for, even with the current situation.
Yeah, I mean, having DeJounte Murray be like fun. Big time assets is a bit of a stretch for me when it comes to like I'd rather just save that for the offseason and see what becomes.
But just do it now. Like I don't get the difference between doing it in the offseason now. I guess maybe you hope someone else becomes available, but
yeah, exactly. You don't know who's going to become available, and I don't think he's such a I got to get him now guy that it takes me out of the running for things that could come available this offseason. Marketing's interesting from the standpoint of like I said, we've never really seen Embiid with a true stretch 4
Horford.
like him. What'd you say?
I said Horford, but
Horford, yeah. But he was more of a backup center.
A 5,
like besides Muscala,
right.
Like Muscala. Mark and I'd be much more interested in like if you could find a way to do like Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson.
Jordan Clarkson is on my list as well. I think he would be perfect. Like he's almost like a Lou Williams vibe of like off the bench, heat check every time he has the ball. Like could come in a playoff game and give you like a surprising 20, 18, like 18 or 20 points to help you. Like I'm all in on Jordan Clarkson. And beyond this year, he's still under contract. So on a good
And
deal too.
they need someone like that. Like they need
Yeah.
him, like guy like him, a guy like the Hawks Bogdanovich. These guys that can just come in and fill it up. And they just have not. They've got all the length. They've got the defensive guys. They've got some 3-and-D options, but they don't have a guy you can just throw besides Maxey on most nights.
Well, Maxey's kind of the guy that ideally is like that scorch earth scorer type of guy, not run the whole offense. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doc now.
In a perfect world, he's a sixth man, but that's not the case here. Who else is on your list?
All right, so those are like my difference makers. So DeMar DeRozan, actually, let's talk about him quickly.
Oh, finally.
There was a report they'd be willing to trade a first-round pick. So
now I don't know if they probably wouldn't. They probably wouldn't do that anymore, right? With the Embiid news.
I guess like maybe that would change things. But DeMar,
do you really want to waste a first-round pick on trading for DeMar DeRozan?
No, I don't think it's a good use of a resource. I agree. Like he's going to be a free agent. He's old. He's having a down year. The only benefit of him is if you can trade like I don't know Marcus Morris and 2 second-round picks or something. I do think he comes in and alleviates some pressure off of Maxey. Like he is someone that can come in, he'll score, mid-range jumper guy, doesn't take a lot of threes. I think he's up to almost 3 a game this year. I know. Well, look, the Sixers don't take threes, so he'll fit in perfectly. Perfect. I just think he brings like a veteran scorer presence that they could use. And again, Embiid could in theory be back, like he could, and then he alleviates the pressure off of him too. And that's another part of this is if they actually think Embiid's going to be back, to your point about wait for the deadline, if they think Embiid's going to be back with like 10 games to go, Murray alleviates the pressure on Embiid when he comes back. Like Lauri Markkanen alleviates the pressure on Embiid. If you don't do anything of substance at the deadline, not only will Embiid comes back, will he be playing in like a play-in game, but he'll also be expected to come in and completely change everything and turn it all around. So the benefit of those 3 guys, in my opinion, is it alleviates pressure off of Embiid and Maxey in the short term, but in the long term, Embiid.
Well, I think the best way I can put this is that like I think Murray and Markkanen are long shots. We'll know. I feel like DeMar DeRozan is the litmus test for how much do they believe Embiid is going to be ready to go. Like how much do they believe that this is a 4-week injury that he can start playing again in like 6. You know what I mean? So if they go get a DeRozan and you're giving up a real asset, first-round pick's a pretty real asset. That means you think that Embiid's going to play again this year, and that he's going to be pretty healthy in doing that. So, like I think DeRozan gets. I'm sorry to keep bringing up baseball, but it's kind of
it's how I see the world through the Eagles. You see the world through baseball. It's just how we do things.
It's kind of like the people that rail against batting average and how it's it doesn't matter. DeMar DeRozan in the postseason with like a mid-range game that you can just throw the ball to and let him go kind of score. I think that's actually something they've needed the last couple of years.
I agree,
100%. They haven't really had that guy. I was much more willing to give a first when Embiid might have been back sooner. Yeah. But I still would do it. And listen, I like DeRozan a lot, and his game is not as good as it was a couple of years ago, but a proven scorer that I think you get him in the mid-range, you kind of throw him the ball. If Embiid late in the game,
put Embiid down low, put DeRozan in the mid-range.
He's not afraid to take a last shot. You need that.
In all seriousness, to that point, I know he doesn't have a great playoff record. I feel very confident that DeMar DeRozan in a big game is at least going to feel confident taking the shot. Like
we're eye test. We're eye test when it comes to
I agree. He passes the eye test. Like Maxey, I feel like could shrink a little. Embiid, that's a 4-hour conversation. But I think DeRozan has that kind of that ability. All right, so I'm gonna throw some other names by you quickly. Stop me if you have like any level of serious interest. All right.
Okay.
Bruce Bowen on the Raptors. 1 year left, so he's a free agent.
Bruce Brown.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Bruce. My bad. I always think of Bruce Bowen. Bruce Brown from the Raptors.
Love Bruce Brown. Probably not the right time to do it, but love Bruce
but
Brown.
He healed.
No.
Okay. The other Bogdanovich.
Detroit Bogdanovich?
The Detroit one, yeah.
The one that with the bald spot that definitely
yeah.
winner. That's another like if that shows they think Embiid's gonna be fine or
Agreed.
Embiid might be back. So I like watching him play. So I would take that. Yes,
Gary Trent Jr. has played with Nick
always.
Nurse. Ian?
Always. I
All right,
I
same,
I bet on
same.
I bet on Gary Trent Jr. every single night. So
Dude,
yes.
Gary Trent Jr. is one of those players that it'll be 4 years from now, and I'll be like, yeah, I would definitely do it. Like I'm
Always.
just convinced he's someone that can
He
come in
could
and make a ton of
retire.
threes.
He could retire. And so
100%.
hey, he could probably come in and get hit three
Yes.
threes for you.
Alex Caruso, we probably should have talked to him with DeMar. Like maybe you give up a first and something else of value if you get Caruso and DeMar DeRozan. But people love Caruso. I would do it. I think he has a lot of good qualities. I think he's somewhat overrated now. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
averaging 10 points. He's a good 3-point shooter, but doesn't take a ton of them.
Mm-mm.
Great defender. Like I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a difference maker.
Yeah, and not. I mean, and again, if it's DeRozan and Caruso or someone and Caruso, but like
Mm.
just Caruso, what does that change?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Now he signed beyond this year, so there's that
Yeah,
value.
yeah. I
We
mean, that's
talked
someone
about
that if you're looking for a guy for next year too, he makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. Then Jordan Clarkson, we talked about 3 years, 52 million. So not terrible money for what he does, but not a short term kind of deal either. So those are the guys I had. Those role players and the three main guys. Do you think they do something?
I think, man, it's I wish I had a better read on it.
I
I
don't think
really
they're
do.
going to. I don't
I
think
don't
they're
think they're
going
gonna do anything. I don't think they're gonna do anything, and
Yep.
it kind of stinks because I was so excited for like I think we talked about on this podcast like maybe a month ago. The only thing that matters is what Morey does at the trade deadline,
Mm-hmm.
and we're heading into the trade deadline on what should have been the biggest of his career because he has the assets, he has the cap space, he has the expiring contracts, and it's like, well, we're deciding if we wanted to shut Embiid down for the year
Yep.
or give false hope, and maybe trading for a 34-year-old DeRozan, like a first round pick, and that's fun. Like if they can find a guy that like I mean Caruso makes sense. It's just he's so not exciting.
Yes.
But a guy that is signed further beyond this year, like Clarkson's a perfect guy. Where that's a guy next year is coming off the bench and you build out the rest of the team however you want to build out the rest of the team. But it's just I'm just so deflated. Like
This is without question the saddest pod we've done.
well, because if there's one thing that we made very clear early in this podcast is that I love watching role players in the NBA. Like it's the
And
only
now all
reason
their
to
role
watch.
players are bad. Oubre sucks, by the way. Now, like,
Of course
I
he
almost bought
does.
his jersey earlier in the year. Thank God I didn't do that. Like,
He's always they're all back to who we thought they were. That's
sadly.
the issue. Like Embiid's back to who we thought he was.
Well,
Oubre's back to who we thought he was. Even Maxi.
the
Like
expression, obviously, like they thought they are who we thought they were. They're
yeah.
actually who people tried to tell me they were, which is the most upsetting.
Except I think we're still nursemen.
We are. Yes. Yes.
Not much you can do right now.
Yeah.
He's playing Ricky Council and
Dude, he's got some juice. Also, Ricky Council, I think of as being much bigger than he is. Like he's like kind of small and shifty in a way. Like I'm in on Ricky Council and Turk long term. Obviously, this year they're not going to do much, but they have looked promising when they've come in.
Well, I saw Turk. He made that shot in like a millisecond within being in the game, and I was like, could be a 6-man.
Exactly. I mean, he's kind of like Maxi, like just in terms of like undersized shooter, like tons of confidence. Like he has Maxi qualities.
Exactly right. It putting up huge numbers in the G League. But yeah,
Good stuff.
It's been it's frustrating, and we're back here, and all the questions are being answered, and the relitigation of the Sixers. It's all
Guess what?
Come crashing back down to earth, buddy. Fun times.
If they go trade for Murray, I'll be way more optimistic on the next pod. So Daryl, like, make me optimistic again. I've defended this team more than anyone else. Like, go give me something to work with. I got nothing right now, but like, give me a trade by Thursday and I'll be back in. But if they don't make a trade on Thursday, man, we'll have a lot to talk about on the pod, but it won't be a lot of wins. It'll be, someone at the beginning of the pod put in the chat that the Phillies signed Bellinger, and it threw me off so bad. But if they sign him and the Sixers keep losing, maybe we'll talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, listen, anytime you want, we can talk about Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger, do you think he's a right-handed or a left-handed hitter?
So I don't care, honestly, but I do think Cody Bellinger, I've always like he's a perfect example. At one point I viewed him as a star, and now he's definitely a star. Like I would for sure go get Cody Bellinger.
So, but is he a left-handed hitter or a right-handed hitter?
I'm gonna guess left.
It's a good guess. You nailed
Is
it.
he both? Is it like a switch hitter?
No,
Okay,
he's,
all right.
he's just a left-handed hitter.
Like, why does it matter? Like, I get why it matters because like they obviously see the ball different coming out of the pitcher's hand.
It doesn't matter. I'm just wanting to know. I want to know how deep your Cody Bellinger knowledge
I
was.
feel like of all the things to ask me about Cody Bellinger, like another one would have been like, who did he play for last year? But like, who
did he play? Who did he play for last year?
So wasn't it the Cubs?
Yes.
Traded from the Rockies, right?
No.
Who am I thinking? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
You're thinking of Chris Bryant, I think.
I am thinking of Chris Bryant. Yes. So I guess maybe I'm not as in on Cody Bellinger.
You knew Chris Bryant was on the Rockies, so
I did. Yes.
Could have been talking about Nolan Jones, but I don't think
could have been worse. Well, I often do talk about Nolan Jones. So.
Yeah, well, hold on. That's Plymouth White Marsh's finest. So.
Oh, is it? All right.
Yeah, he had a nice little 2020 year last year. Either way, not to get super off track.
Yeah. Look, we'll be back Thursday. It'll be the trade deadline. Hopefully, they make a major move.
Yes.
Clap your hands.
Clap your hands. Everything's fine. We'll be back later in the week for Eliot, Shorr-Parks, and Jack Fritz. This has been Clap Your Hands, presented by Coors Light, if you couldn't tell. And we'll be back later, and hopefully the Sixers don't let us down. But seems like we're trending that way. Yes. Again, for Eliot, Shorr-Parks, and Jack Fritz, this has been another edition of Clap Your Hands.